I do think that, there could be more automation done in affiliate marketing. I sincerely believe that billions of dollars could be unlocked in more revenue for affiliates, both mainly on the affiliate side, but that also translates to more revenue on the operator side.
Hey, this is Jesse here, and you're about to hear my discussion with John Wright from StatsDrone, which is a B2B data analytics company providing software to the affiliate marketing industry. In this one, John explains how StatsDrone is helping gaming affiliates and operators alike use data to minimize revenue leak, his advice for selecting the right startup advisors, why he started a podcast and the benefits it's brought to StatsDrone, and how he's weighing the current decision between closing an oversubscribed funding round and pursuing acquisition offers. John's one of the hardest working industry entrepreneurs that I know, and he provided a ton of value in this discussion. But before we get started, heads up that applications are now open for the First Pitch competition being held at the SPC Summit in Lisbon this coming September. First Pitch is an incredible platform for startup founders to accelerate their progress, and a $100,000 prize package doesn't hurt either. Look in the show notes for the First Pitch application link, which is now open until July 25th. The Betting Startups podcast is presented by Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming market. 4 out of the top 5 US operators personalize player experiences with Optimove. Learn more about Optimove by requesting a demo at optimove.com/bettingstartups. And if you like what you see, you'll get your first month free. All right, we are back here on the Betting Startups podcast. I've recently returned home from the Canadian Gaming Summit, and hot off the heels of being in Toronto last week for a great event, I thought I'd join one of the people who I caught up with last week in Toronto, John Wright from StatsDrone. John, welcome to the podcast. How you doing?
Doing great. And Jesse, it was great to see you in Toronto, and I think we caught up in New York City, so it's nice to run into each other.
Yeah, absolutely. Great to see you last week. I guess just to do a quick retrospective, how was the show for you and your time in Toronto overall?
Great to be back in Toronto. I'm from there. The show was, for me, surprisingly, it just went really well. I went there just to meet a couple of people, and then it turned out, I wasn't really saying, okay, I've got an agenda. I need to get X number of sales, but it looks like they just kind of happened. So, I'll take those extra wins.
And for you, you didn't have to fly halfway across the world to attend this conference. You're a person who's fairly prolific on the conference circuit, and you're always, on from one locale to the next, one conference to the next, but probably nice for you to, I guess, be a drive away from home to attend this one, hey?
Yeah, it was pretty easy. This time I actually took the train, so I was able to work the whole time. So it didn't feel like too much of a disruption.
Awesome. All right, John, well, let's get into everything StatsDrone in a hot minute here. But before we do that, for the audience who may not be familiar with you, being somebody who's quite visible on LinkedIn and at the conferences, as alluded to, give us a quick introduction. Tell us a bit about yourself, your background, and basically the major chapters of your time in this industry up until starting StatsDrone.
Sure. Let's go back to the very beginning. I went to school for engineering. I did robotics and a bit of AI back then, and totally wasn't expected or planning to get into iGaming in any capacity. But one of my friends recruited me to join his card counting team, or he tried to. And I just said, you can't make money as a gambler. I'm like, that's just stupid. And a couple of years later, I saw that, he's buying nice cars. I was like, all right, something's weird going on here. This might be actually real. So at that time, he actually was transitioning from card counting to basically bonus hunting. And then it was like online poker, online sports betting. It was like everything was going online. So I started with that, and I said, hey, I've got $500 in credit card debt that I can spend before I'm tapped out, on top of $40K in debt from university. And I said, I've got nothing to lose. If it fails, then okay, I've still got the same relative debt. I'm just going to get a job. But it worked out well, and I've been able to take that, run with it. This industry is the golden handcuff, so it's kind of challenging to leave. But within that time, I've done professional gambling, managed a bunch of casinos, the affiliate program, fraud department, VIP, got to work with affiliates, then became an affiliate. And then I'm going back to my engineering roots and saying, I see problems not being solved and people just kind of either complaining about it or not really articulating the problem. So that just kind of got me to think, you know what, I think I want to give this StatsDrone project a try. So I had an idea that I wanted to do, and yeah, now I'm all in on it.
Well, perfect springboard, John. Talk about that idea you had at the beginning and the origins of StatsDrone. I guess, where were you at that time? What was the gap you saw in the market, and I guess the opportunity you saw for what is now StatsDrone?
Yeah, I'll roll it back to when I used to do affiliate management. I remember working with a bunch of affiliates where they'd be like, "Hey, I'm not going to give you placement unless you give me 70% revenue share commission." And I'm just thinking, I'm like, all right, in order for me to do that, I'd have to steal from you. So the companies that were offering it, pretty sure they're delivering a low ROI. So it made me realize that there's a bunch of affiliates that didn't really look at core metrics like earnings per click, for example, which I thought was pretty obvious, but that was one eye opener. The second part was just being an affiliate a couple years later and just realizing I'm like, okay, you know what? When an affiliate program closes, they don't just like, hey, John, we're closing, remove all your tracking links because we're not going to pay you anymore. They just disappear. So it's now my responsibility to not only stay on top of it, but to monitor all my tracking links to know if something goes sideways, I need to be on top of it. So anytime a program would change software, this was one of my biggest pet peeves. They would tell you and they'd say, hey, change your tracking links. But you get blasted with so many emails. I mean, that message gets buried. So if you don't pay attention to that, you're now sending traffic to a brand that is basically not connecting properly anymore. And it's, again, your responsibility. So I just felt there's no central place where this feedback loop could be kind of given to you as an affiliate. And at that time, I was using an app that was called Stats Remote, and they basically gave you your stats. But I'm like, wait a minute. We need the feedback loop of a review with user generated content and something that was just smart. Like, help me stop losing money. So this concept of revenue leak was like the first time, I wanted to just solve for it. I didn't even knew it was like there's a keyword for it, like revenue leak. So I just wanted to solve a problem, and I knew that there was a lot of money being left on the table. I didn't know how big of a project this was going to be, but I just said, you know what? I just want to try. I don't know if I'm going to make a comfortable living doing this, or if I'm going to be making a big mistake, or if this is going to turn into $1 billion project. I didn't know, but I just said I want to give it a go.
So talk a little bit about, with that being the problem you identified, what was the original solution you conceived of for StatsDrone, and talk a little bit about, I guess, just what is StatsDrone, what's the value proposition, and give the audience a bit of a sense of what it is you guys are up to.
Yeah, it's kind of like taking your existing data and making it come to life. So back in the day, I mean, if anyone was even using tools like Stats Remote or Nifty Stats, I mean, you got all of your data in this giant table. But that giant table doesn't really tell you a lot. It tells you how much you make, but it's really difficult to visualize what's going on in terms of the trends. So data analysis was one part of it. And then the other part of it, which was something, I mean, I'm going to be very honest, I didn't even know what it meant. So this concept of business intelligence, this is what I was doing. I just didn't realize there was a keyword. So I just wanted to, stop revenue leak, but also help with the opposite, which is revenue optimization. I mean, if we can help people make more money, that's where all these core concepts kind of came into play. I just didn't know the buzzwords associated with it. Now I'm kind of abusing them, if I want to say. So, it's like business intelligence. Yeah, it's the hottest thing to say, but I mean, just that whole segment on its own is a massive industry, and just kind of combining this in affiliate marketing, I just think that there's a big opportunity here for everyone.
Awesome. So let's break down the StatsDrone product as it exists today. Again, for the benefit of the audience, give us a bit of a sense of what is the offering, who it's for, who's using it, and kind of where it's at from a trajectory perspective.
Yeah, so we have SEO affiliates, we have PPC affiliates, we have affiliate agencies, and we also have affiliate networks using it. So the core element of what it started off was just to get all the data from all the affiliate programs. So save you time. If that program went out of business, you would at least have a historical copy of your data. The second parts of it we started adding on as layers were kind of like business intelligence, where it's like, how do we help you make more money with your current traffic and just using those insights? And the second part of it was CRM, which is kind of weird because when you think about affiliate CRM, you're like, well, that sounds like a useful product. But when you type in affiliate CRM, there's no products that actually come to mind, and they don't even rank for it. So a lot of people have actually bought and just parked like affiliatecrm.com, crmaffiliate.com, and all these CRM related keywords, but no one's actually done anything with it. So we're starting to build some of that out, and we have an opportunity to work with some really large affiliates, and we know what kind of backends they have. They have really complex backends that have all of their affiliate managers, all the companies, all the brands, all the bonuses, like everything. So we're actually starting to aggregate that and say, hey, we're going to make this available as a service, so you don't have to maintain this insanely heavy database that probably requires multiple people. So rather than having multiple people per company, per affiliate, we're just saying, hey, it's the same data, so why don't we just centralize it?
And given all of the data you've aggregated on the affiliate ecosystem, And, given the global, I think, focus that StatsDrone seems to have, and, again, you are spending a lot of time over in Europe and in non-North American locales. Can you help quantify just like the overall size of the global affiliate market? I mean, I don't know how you would measure that, but what are you seeing in the data to just sort of help us understand what affiliates really represent to the gaming industry?
Tough question. I'll try to answer it in a couple of different ways. So I believe less than 1% of affiliates use tools like what we do to get all of your data and your stats and all that fun stuff. So we got less than 1% of a box over here. There's millions and millions of affiliates in all industries combined. And maybe if we want to quantify iGaming, let's say it's 10,000. On the opposite end, there's this concept called ad tech, which is anything from link tracking tools to like the actual ads and widgets, and it doesn't matter if it's videos or GIF banners, all of it. That's at least 50% of affiliate marketers that are using something. And it's pretty easy for us to find all of them. So we actually are building our own tool to actually map out the whole internet of all gambling affiliates and go, where are they? How many brands do they promote? Like which brands and which geos, whether it's gray or legal? Do they use dynamic variables and postbacks? What kind of WordPress plugins or even themes are they using? So we're trying to map that out as we speak, and we're finding lots of interesting things. My first agenda was to find all the affiliates so we could obviously tell them about StatsDrone. But as we went down this rabbit hole, we're like, wait a minute, this is super valuable for operators, affiliate managers, and even affiliates. If they want to do like market research, it's like we actually are building that market research tool as we speak. And like the stuff that's inside of it is just infinite. It's like, for example, one of my pet projects is like, because I'm so big on revenue leak, it's let me find the entire global database of every closed casino and closed sportsbook and closed poker room and find affiliates that are still actively linking to them. I don't know how much money that's worth, but I wouldn't be surprised if this could actually be hundreds of millions of dollars in lost revenue. I mean, I did a basic calculation of one brand that had 25 affiliate websites. This brand closed in January of this year. They still have 25 affiliate sites linking to them. Now, it's not always on their top page and their top list, but it's on like the review page. And yeah, when I ran how much money I think was being processed through that, it was insane amounts. It was hundreds of thousands of dollars. And that was just one casino. So if we can just keep going through this data and finding stuff, it just doesn't end. Like, I'll give you another example. So we're finding all these affiliate sites and we're like, all right, find me all the page titles that have 2024, 2023, 2022, that shouldn't be that. So, when you have a top list like best casinos 2024, well, that was last year. And weirdly enough, sometimes affiliates, they just react to that stronger than, hey guys, we can help you aggregate your stats. They're like, John, go away. You're annoying. It's like, oh, you have this 2024 keyword in your page title. They're like so grateful. They're like, thanks. And it's like, well, who else could we find that has this? So it's kind of surprising that there's actually large affiliates that have broken tracking links, closed casinos, and they've got all this broken metadata all over the place. And the internet's just littered with it. So hopefully we'll start with the research, and then maybe that will get people to change to go, okay, how can I fix it or stay on top of it? And then again, maybe we'll be the company that centralizes it.
There's a lot there and a lot to unpack, and I'll resist temptation to double click on some of the things you said there. But I guess what I'm curious about, John, and again, for the benefit of the audience, you described what sounds like some use cases and value propositions, not only for affiliates, but potentially for operators as well. Who's your customer? And part B to that, as far as packaging up the StatsDrone offering, I mean, how is it packaged up and productized? I think it's a SaaS product, if I'm not mistaken. Just talk a bit about, who the customer is and sort of what the offering is to the customer segments.
Yeah, the customer from day one has been mainly focused on affiliates, but we did believe there was a future connectivity to connect both sides of the fence where, there's this invisible line that goes right in the middle, and operators and affiliate programs and affiliate managers are on one side, and then the affiliates are on the other side. But there's just this thing that was kind of like the connection was there, but it's just disconnected. Like the offers, it's you change a sign-up bonus, you email your affiliates, and then now you're expecting your affiliates to just change it all instantly. That actually literally takes months to even get like half of your database to change that. So at some point, we do envision that will be useful for affiliate programs. But in the short term, it's basically focused on affiliates. But as we start building out these research tools, I mean, yeah, the interest from operators is actually stronger. Like that research tool, all affiliate managers want that. The BI platform that we've been building for affiliates, where it's like, how do we tell you that, hey, if you've got 20 depositing players plus or minus 5%, then it drops down to like 3. As an affiliate, you want to know that this has happened. And as an affiliate manager, you'd also want to know this is happening as well, because maybe you actually have a deal negotiated with that affiliate, and if that deal was not honored, you want to stay on top of it. Or maybe something changed and broke and it's on the affiliate side and you're able to proactively fix it. So we are, funny enough, getting slowly more connected on the operator side as we go down these rabbit holes. And as much as like what we've been pitching for the last couple of years is ad tech, it's like we're trying to still keep building this ad tech, but as we get closer to it, this whole analytics side just keeps getting bigger and stops us from getting there. So if you asked me a couple weeks ago, it's like, are we going for H2 of this year? I would have said ad tech. Now we just had one of our MVPs come up really successful, and I mentioned to you in Toronto, and just blew my mind. I'm like, wow, it's like this could actually be a whole other business on its own, and it might not make us ever get to ad tech. We'll see.
That's interesting. I want to pull on that thread for a second, right? I mean, I know you had your original problem you were looking to solve with StatsDrone, and in the few years since you've started the company, I think uncovered new opportunities, and to some degree have sort of leaned into those opportunities. How's that been for you insofar as sort of staying true to your original, sort of vision for what you think you needed to be solving versus listening to what the market is telling you and being pulled and letting yourself being pulled in the direction that the market is pulling you in?
Yeah, it's a good question. Sometimes we have a lot of influence or companies that they want to either partner us or simply put, they actually just want to acquire us. They're like, we want to turn you into our next affiliate network because you have like the perfect suite of tools to make this happen. That would transform us instantly from a SaaS company to one that's kind of like an affiliate network, which is kind of like a share of that business. So we're still trying to stay a bit true for the short term, at least, to say, well, what is the mission statement and what's the vision statement? And I know these things kind of maybe sound cliche or whatever you want to call it, but they're actually very helpful. We just got a new advisor joining our team in Jeffrey Haas, and it's one of the first things he asked for. He's like, what is your vision statement? What's your mission statement? Like, where do you see this company at? And what's your North Star? Like, how are you going to make decisions of what you do and don't do? That mission statement is, how do we make affiliate marketing better? So as long as we keep answering that question, we'll keep going forward. And I think our biggest problem right now is these exit offers where, yeah, they could actually derail us. But I'm hoping that even if that does happen, I just hope that at least we can push affiliate marketing in the future and go, okay, all these things that we've been trying to solve for, we're probably not going to be the only company that does these things, but maybe if we're able to kind of influence more people, I mean, it's not just our show. It's like we don't own any of this stuff. But if more companies can kind of jump in and say, hey, I'm going to take this ad tech and I'm going to run with it, it's like there's no intellectual property on these ideas. It's kind of like it's a free-for-all.
We'll come back to the exit offers in a few minutes here. I'm not going to let you say that without me asking more about that, but we'll come back to that in a sec, John. I want to talk a bit about the StatsDrone brand and to some extent the John Wright brand. I saw you in Toronto last week in your hallmark purple, right? Purple ball cap, purple t-shirt. You and your team have become really synonymous with the color purple, and you're attending all the industry conferences in your purple gear. And I want to ask a bit about that. I mean, it's a very almost like a silly thing to ask about, but it's really done something for you guys, I have to think. And I'm curious just from the awareness perspective, the brand building perspective, what's that actually tangibly done for you guys as you've gotten StatsDrone out to market and really trying to get yourself noticed in a very noisy industry with a lot of different technology. You guys have really carved out, I think, a nice position for yourself on the back of what sounds almost silly to say, but it's been effective. So just talk a bit about that and the intentionality behind that decision.
Yeah, it was, I remember I like going to conferences and looking good and wearing a nice dress shirt and shoes and all that stuff. I mean, it's nice to do that when you're able just kind of wear casual gear at home. And I've done that for 20 years. But I remember this was probably 8 years ago, I went to a cryptocurrency conference and I didn't know anyone there. So of course I'm in one of these open bars, and the only people I wanted to talk to were people that actually had logos on their t-shirts. If I was brand new to iGaming and I saw you with betting startups, I'm walking up to you and be like, tell me what you guys do. I think I have a good idea, but I still want to know. So that was a can opener. And I don't really consider myself the most outgoing guy where I'm not just going to go right through a whole entire room and pitch people. I don't want to say it's not my style, just I'm not comfortable doing it. So I wanted to give people an opportunity to do the same to us, where it's like, hey, if you're that shy person, you can come see us. And purple was very intentional to say, how do we stand out? And, just this color is pretty, for now, it's easy to spot at a conference. So we do the hats, we do the t-shirts. I mean, we even do the shoes for, people are looking. It's like, hello, our eyes up here. But it's been pretty helpful. I know there's going to be more companies that are taking the purple color. It's like, again, we don't own it, but I mean, for now, what we hear from people, it's like, we hear this quite often. They're like, oh, I thought I saw you guys, but it's like they're wearing a purple shirt, and when it wasn't you, they're disappointed. I'm like, awesome, let's keep it that way.
Sticking with the brand building side of it for a sec, John, as I alluded to, you're fairly prolific on LinkedIn. I just want to ask about, again, the decision to lean into LinkedIn as a platform, kind of your strategy for maximizing the value of that platform, and really whether that's unlocked for you in the business through all of the content you're, pushing out there and the engagement that you're doing on there.
Yeah, absolutely. LinkedIn was something I decided a couple of years ago to just try. So I'll be very blunt and honest. We didn't really know what we're doing when it came to go to market. When we relaunched our app in 2021, we thought it was just going to sell itself. We're like, here's an amazing product. We were just that arrogant back then. And when we realized it wasn't working, we're like, damn, like, what are we going to do about this? So the one thing I learned, and I'm glad I learned this because I could have learned this the hard way, is I follow a guy named Tom Hunt, and he's prolific on LinkedIn, and he also does B2B podcast coaching. So in his podcast coaching, he advocates for X, Y, and Z. On LinkedIn, he basically says, look, you can do LinkedIn and YouTube and Twitter and Reddit and whatever. There's so many channels, but they all have a different algorithm. He's like, take one of those platforms and master it well before you consider doing others, and stick with it. So that sounds kind of obvious, but that wasn't really my style. I liked trying everything. And then once I failed at it, I would have been like, oh, this all sucks. But I gave LinkedIn a go, and I said, I'm going to be intentional with it for months. And then that month turned into 6 months and then a year. And I started getting feedback of seeing what worked and what didn't work. So I just became not afraid to fail. Like, I think in putting your face and name out there and having an opinion and sharing it and being open to criticism, I think that kind of stops a lot of people from doing it. And I know for me, I was nervous as hell doing any of this stuff, being a guest on other people's podcasts, setting up my own podcast, and even trying to post thought leadership stuff on LinkedIn. But I said, let me give it a go and give it a try. And I think I figured out a lot of how the algorithms can or should work. I don't think they'll work all the time, but I mean, it's done amazing work for us. Sometimes when we're talking to new customers, they're like, yeah, I saw your thing on LinkedIn the other day, and that turned into, sometimes it's a long buyer journey, but it's like whatever it takes, it's one more touch point, but as long as it's a positive touch point, it kind of adds up. And I think a lot of companies in iGaming, especially on the B2B side, there's a massive opportunity with LinkedIn and other channels too.
Do you have any specific actionable insight or tactic you would suggest people try for LinkedIn, or is it just a case of like just getting started and just staying consistent?
Well, I'll start with the horrible things, which is like, definitely include cat and dog videos. Those will work all the time. And if you can take a picture of you having a coffee, looking kind of thoughtful, and just posting something cheesy, that works like magic. And I know people do that, and I know I could take advantage of it and probably double or triple my follower base, but I don't think that's very useful. One tip I'd kind of give to people is something I've learned by interviewing other really good SEO people, where they say, like when they started doing YouTube, some of them still don't have like an insane number of followers. But what they say is like, they're like, see this YouTube video over here? It's got like 50 likes. They basically say sometimes that's led to like 6-figure sales. Just a single click has transformed everything. So sometimes the posts that look like duds where they don't have a lot of likes end up actually being things that have been very transformational. And sometimes you can't see what's on the other side. Like I'll do a post, and then if I get a DM because of it or an email, like that's your feedback loop. And I think a lot of people, they're more kind of tuned into the number of likes. So yeah, likes are nice. They kind of give you a pat on the back, but learn how to fail and don't care if you actually do a post and it's got like no likes. I mean, if it's got no likes, you shouldn't really care because you haven't embarrassed yourself if no one's really seeing it. So just do it again.
And you just alluded to it, but you also, amidst everything else, host a podcast of your own, the Affiliate BI podcast. Again, just talk a bit about the decision to launch a podcast and what that's unlocked for you from a business perspective, if anything, and kind of just your journey as a podcaster. And obviously, I can probably relate to a lot of what you're about to say here, but I'd love to just kind of hear from your side, John, what podcasting has done for you.
Yeah, podcasting, it's very difficult to get companies to agree to do these things. For me as the co-founder, I get to make that decision. Now, one of the biggest problems is it's very difficult to know when your sales are coming from a podcast. So for example, I know this happens and I can't measure it all the time. someone listens to the podcast, they recommend the podcast to a friend, that friend listens to it, and then they Google StatsDrone and then they sign up. Well, that whole referral came from Google, but it actually came from the podcast. We can't just measure these things, and it's no different than that YouTube video with these SEO pros where it's like, all right, how impactful is it? So again, I followed Tom Hunt, and he basically said when he did a podcast back in the day when he was getting started, he said like it was basically going, he's like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm just going to start it. I'm going to try a channel. And then eventually it led to a substantial sale. Like, he's interviewing his customers, but he's not actually selling them. And, what I like to say is that, look at how we know each other. It's, I see you on your podcast. I mean, I see you on LinkedIn, but with the podcast, I've had someone say this to me before. I listened to you a few times. I feel like I know you. And I've had someone say that to me just meeting them online for the first time. They're like, I feel like I know you because they listened to a couple of my shows. So the ability to generate a super strong connection is just, I don't know how you write it down. It's hard to say like, what is this worth? And then if I want to take this to another level with a statement, which is if I had to pay every guest $500 for their time and no one else saw it, I'd gladly pay that invoice. I just kind of joke that I don't want to say this too many more times because one of my guests actually was listening to me and he basically said, I'll send you an invoice after the show. Thank you, John.
No, I can relate pretty hard to that, John. We chatted a bit about it last week in Toronto, but at least from my perspective, it's been interesting to just kind of see the unexpected things that have shown up just by virtue of the fact of doing this week over week, month over month, now year over year, and just staying consistent with it and the compounding effect of creating content and just putting yourself out there, as you said earlier. So I couldn't have scripted it if I lived to be 1,000 years old, and I'm sure there's going to be more stuff showing up that I could not foresee here today. But, for you, I'm not surprised to hear it's led to some interesting things. And back to your point about the challenges of podcast attribution, that is a huge challenge. And, maybe for you guys at StatsDrone, if you run out of things to work on with what you're currently up to, you can eventually do some podcast attribution tracking software. That'd be hilarious.
We could, but definitely don't want to do it.
I'd be your first customer.
Yeah, we're going to stay super busy in affiliate marketing. Even if there was an exit on the table, it's kind of like, it's just so many projects to do. It just doesn't end.
For sure. All right. So you said it again there, exit on the table. I saw you in March in New York at the Next.io show. At that time, we had a bit of a chat in the context of fundraising that you and the team were working on. And then last week in Toronto, we caught up. Sounds like that process has progressed quite meaningfully since seeing you in March. So you're out there actively raising money. Let's just start there. Give the audience a bit of a sense of kind of the, what you're looking to raise, kind of how those conversations are going and the feedback you've been getting from the market on the fundraising side.
Yeah, we've done fundraising for the last couple of years, and we decided to put together another round to just kind of step on the gas and go for growth. So our target was 500,000 US for 7.5 million valuation. We were lucky enough to go on stage at the Janata investment pitch contest at Next in Valletta, and that's opened up a lot of doors. When it comes to like securities and all that stuff, you're not really meant to just go on social media and be, hey guys, we're raising money. What you are allowed to do is say like, hey, I'm actually in this pitch contest. And because it's a contest, it's kind of like, this is not a legal advice, but it kind of absolves you from a little bit of that responsibility where you don't want to just be caught. So you have to be very careful with it. So that has opened up a lot of doors for people like, oh, I didn't realize you were raising. Because again, you don't just have that sign on all the time saying, hey, we're open for fundraising. So just doing that whole process has opened up a lot of doors. It's very helpful to have all these other social channels running in the background where people like, they see me on LinkedIn, they know we got a podcast, so we're visible in the market. And I think the other thing that's been super helpful, and it's hard to know when any company should actually think about it, but getting Jeffrey Haas as an advisor it's only been a couple months, but it's been really transformational for us. I mean, that opens up a lot of doors. So if any startup is listening, I'd say, there's going to be a lot of people that will present themselves as your advisor and they might want substantial equity, but, kind of just be patient and see if you can find the right person who's going to like really amplify what you do.
Just sticking with that for a second, John, I think that's actually a great point because I do get a lot of startups hitting me up saying, hey, can you, we need help in XYZ area. And to your point, there's a lot of people out there that advertise themselves as advisors, and like anything, you're going to get different degrees of quality and capability and expertise. And, is what you bought the same thing as what was sold? All the challenges therein. I guess as you decided to work with Jeffrey, and by the way, good getting Jeffrey, shout out Jeffrey, friend of the podcast, and a great resource for any startup that's lucky enough to get him. But for you, what would you say, is something startups should consider when talking to prospective advisors? How do you basically do due diligence on a potential advisor, right? Obviously there's so much focus on due diligence that investors do on startups, but that should be flipped too. And that's not really talked about a lot. How did you guys do, I guess, due diligence in your particular case, and what would you just generally dispense as advice for other startups looking to do the same?
Everyone should always do due diligence on anyone, whether it's hiring, and for advising, you definitely want to do that. You want to make sure that the people that you're willing to, bring on your team are going to be the right people and they don't have bad stuff or baggage that comes with them. With Jeffrey, basically it was pretty easy to go through his LinkedIn profile and be like, where has he been an advisor before? So funny enough, it's like some of the contacts that we have in common, I was able to ask them and be like, hey, what's it like working with Jeffrey? And it's just been, his resume alone, you could almost blindly trust it. But I didn't want to just do that. I still wanted to do the extra work and look it up. And then, trying to go a step back and going, how do you find these people? It's not easy. I think you have to do a mix of like putting yourself out there. And honestly, I think if we were to ask Jeffrey a year or two ago, he might have been like, no, you guys are still, you got a lot of room to grow, or we need to prove ourselves. So I think we're lucky that we're able to get him on board. But, over the years, we've had people that said, yeah, we'll do this, but we want 10% and we want a board seat. And we've been very fortunate, or I've been fortunate to have a co-founder and a business partner who's been very stringent on a lot of these things. So I'm the guy who likes to shop and buy everything. But yeah, let's try that. But when you're doing that with equity, that's kind of a not advisable thing to do. So good if you can get someone that's thinking for you and kind of looks out for you in that regard.
Awesome. Coming back to the fundraising, you did mention in Toronto last week to me that the 500K target that you mentioned a few minutes ago potentially is going to be oversubscribed. You actually have more, it sounds like, investor demand to participate, which is an interesting problem, I suppose. How do you weigh that up, John, against the other thing you've mentioned a couple of times now, which is a potential exit? Sounds like you do have some other companies that see the value in the work that you guys are doing and the products that you're building. How do you, sitting there as the co-founder, weigh out these two very disparate paths, right? Raising capital, which kind of puts you on a committed path for a number of years into the future here, and puts you on a bit of a trajectory. I don't say a hamster wheel, but puts you on a path, versus entertaining exit offers now, potentially albeit at lower valuations than you might be able to justify in a few years. But it's a big trade-off. How has that been for you, the internal monologue or the internal dialogue within your team, kind of weighing those two very disparate paths and opportunities you have?
Yeah, I've got some people that have advised that, guys, this is a distraction. If you're not really serious about exiting, then you're basically going to be wasting time that could be focused on other things. So as much as I believe that's partially true, I do think there's something to be said about learning the second part of the business, which is, we've at least listened. So if anyone wants to ask, they're allowed to ask, and we at least say we'll consider it and we'll have a talk, but we decide how much time we actually want to invest in that. We are pretty open and upfront saying, like, we don't really want to do this right now, but we still will at least have that conversation. And where we think we are personally, this is all subjective. Like, if something's worth whatever someone's willing to pay for it. So we believe that what we're building, we've actually got more upside and more future value. I think every startup's going to say the same. So you have to kind of roll your own dice and make your own decisions. For us, that decision is to keep building. But if someone can see that value, yeah, they can make an offer, and it's up to me and my business partner to decide, do we think this is the right fit? And I don't know. There's interesting parts to talk about it. On the investor side, it's, we're a lot more keen to focus on smart money and go, what do these investors bring to the table other than here's a check and, go make us some money. We want people that can help us win, whether it's their skills or their network. And I think in theory, there's no shortage of smart money, but it is a very difficult time fundraising right now. So it's to get the attention of investors takes a lot of work. And I think we're lucky, but we don't want to take it for granted. I remember having some advice from a couple angel investors that say, when someone agrees to say they're going to invest, you go through that process. You don't drag your feet and let them change their mind because they can. So we're treating this no different. It's just because people say yes doesn't mean they always follow through for whatever reason. We've had that happen in the past, and we're at least going to keep fundraising until that round is closed. So it's not like to say that, oh, you've made your commitment. We're telling people no. I personally think other people do this as strategy. They offer you everything, so you actually stop fundraising, but then you need the money. You're now dependent on that person who made you those promises, and now they've got a lower valuation for you, for their gain. But that's a whole other story.
Well, sounds like you and the team are in a good position here with the investor interest you have and certainly the knocks on the door on the acquisition side. So exciting times for you guys and obviously a huge validation of everything you're doing. Let's pretend for a sec here, John, you got your crystal ball in front of you. You're looking into it. 5 years from now, where in your wildest dream is StatsDrone at that time?
Too tough to answer. I'm going to focus on 2 to 3 years. I do think that, there could be more automation done in affiliate marketing. I sincerely believe that billions of dollars could be unlocked in more revenue for affiliates, both mainly on the affiliate side, but that also translates to more revenue on the operator side. I don't think we need 5 years to make that happen. And I'm not saying this because of AI this and AI that. I do believe it's a 2-year process. And I actually believe there's going to be, my personal take, there's going to be a little less AI involved in that. The AI that is going to be working in the space it's going to work in weird ways. People will be able to do more with less in theory, but we're also going to have this weird mix of going, well, the people that do have money will be able to get, talented people that can actually manage and grow these things. So hopefully that kind of answers the question in a, I don't know, mostly appropriate way.
Well, maybe 5 years from now, you'll be sitting lakeside in cottage country in Ontario there, just relaxing, and StatsDrone's but a distant memory at that time. You never know, I guess.
Who knows?
I'm going to hit you with a couple rapid fire questions here, John, to get us through the home stretch. You get up in the morning, check your phone. What's the first app you're looking at on your phone?
It is WhatsApp. I remember we chatted about this before, but LinkedIn's probably the more common one. I'm looking for messages. I'm looking for what's new. Just kind of like, is there something I see that's important? I can run with it. And I'll be very honest, going down the rabbit hole of looking for investors, if they got a message there, I want to make sure I'm answering it. I check the email, I check LinkedIn, I check the Facebook, Telegram, WhatsApp. I'm looking for them first, but then it's LinkedIn for going, all right, tell me what I should focus on today. If there's anything there that I need to digest.
I often tell people in these rapid fire questions, John, there's no wrong answers. But in this particular case, if you said anything other than LinkedIn, I wouldn't have accepted it. So we'll go ahead and check that box. If you're at the karaoke lounge, what song are you singing?
I believe in a thing called Love by The Darkness.
Some high notes in that one.
Yeah, I've done that before. I just get together some friends on a PlayStation and that song came up. I'm totally into the band. Obviously, it's like you can't just like sing that without knowing anything. But yeah, it's pretty high, and I've done that at an actual karaoke bar, and it gets a lot of reaction out of people.
Right on. Last one here. If you could be anybody else for one day, dead or alive, who would it be?
Ooh. I think you've asked me this question before, and I totally gapped it. Maybe, yeah, I remember. It's Kobe Bryant. That's like someone, who's not with us before or with us anymore. But I started kind of thinking about like, what do sports people have in common with business? And I think the thing that should be connecting both sides is this will to win. So I just remember kind of going, all right, I'm going down this rabbit hole of, working on StatsDrone, and like I want this to be successful. So how much am I willing to sacrifice? And when I start kind of looking through stories and autobiographies of like some of the best sports personalities of all time, I mean, Kobe Bryant's one of those guys that was just relentless, worked on his craft, and it's that spirit, it's that winning spirit. So I think there's a lot to be said in the sports space, business, iGaming. I like falling back to these metaphors and those personalities.
Well, look, you're one of the hardest working people I know in this space, and probably not many people collecting more air miles than you between all of the conferences you're attending. What are some of the next conferences coming up for you?
Next week is going to be IGB. Looking forward to that. We've got 2 shortlists for awards, so if we get one, we'll be ecstatic, but it's still amazing networking. SBC Lisbon coming up, and I think we're going to do Sigma Rome to close out the year, and maybe one SEO conference in Toronto for SEO IRL.
SEO IRL.
Yeah, by Steve Toff.
Right on, John. Well, look, great to see you last week in Toronto. I'll probably see you next in person in Lisbon in September. In the meantime, how can people reach you to learn more about StatsDrone or get a demo or anything else that might pique their interest through our conversation today?
As seen on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn's where you'll find me. I've got a very common name, but if you see that we have a lot of connections in common, that will definitely be me, john@statsdrone.com. But yeah, LinkedIn's my favorite channel. I'm technically on all the other channels, but it's just more of a technicality. I don't like spending time on too many channels, but you'll find me on LinkedIn.
Just look for the purple hat. If Johnny Cash was the man in black, John Wright's the man in purple. Right.
Exactly.
It's been great having you with us today, John. Wishing you all the best, and we'll keep in touch. Talk to you soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
The Betting Startups podcast is presented by Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming market. 4 out of the top 5 US operators personalize player experiences with Optimove. Learn more about Optimove by requesting a demo at optimove.com/bettingstartups. And if you like what you see, you'll get your first month free.